I've always lived in a shanty town on the outskirts of a desert area known as Arizona. It was an isolated place, with not many people around, and I had gotten used to it. Fishing, hunting, and surviving in the middle of nature was my daily life. I won't lie, sometimes it felt lonely, but I always knew that being surrounded by that vast, empty land also gave me peace. But lately, things started to get weird. It was just another late afternoon. I'd spent a few hours fishing by a river near my place, and as usual, I returned to the shantytown just as the sun was setting. I expected to just come home, cook something to eat, and rest, like always. But as I got closer, I immediately noticed something was wrong. The door to my place was slightly open, and from a distance I could see some things out of place. Damn, must have been a bear or some animal, I thought. It had happened before, so it wasn't exactly a surprise. Living in a place like that has its perks, but it also comes with risks. Bears, wolves, and other creatures weren't exactly uncommon around there. They'd smell food, break in, make a mess, and leave. But as I got closer, the mess seemed bigger than usual. The chairs were knocked over, tools were scattered everywhere, and even the shelves with the few things I had were pulled down. It looked like someone had gone through the place in a rage, but I was still convinced it had to be an animal looking for food. Maybe a bigger, more aggressive bear. I went inside and assessed the damage. I grabbed my rifle, but then came the first problem. I was out of ammo. I had used up the last bullets a few days before trying to scare off some wolves that had gotten too close. At that moment, I got a chill, but I figured there wasn't much else I could do besides reinforcing the house's security. I spent the rest of the day setting up traps around the place. I already had some old heavy iron traps meant for catching bears. I set them all up and even improvised a few more, using ropes and pieces of wood I found lying around. I was exhausted, but I knew I needed to protect myself. If it was an animal coming back, I'd be ready, and if it was a person, well, that would be another problem too. After setting everything up, it was already nighttime. I sat on the bed with my machete next to me, as it was the only thing I had for protection. I kept thinking about what could have made such a mess, but at the same time, I tried to calm myself. After all, it could have been just some random animal and the traps would handle it. Then I started hearing footsteps. They were soft, like something or someone was walking around outside. The sound was coming from outside, moving from one side of the place to the other. I froze. The rifle with no ammo was next to me, completely useless. The only thing I had was the machete, but going out there to face whatever it was didn't seem like the best idea. The footsteps continued for a few minutes. I had this sinking feeling that something bad was about to happen. But then suddenly the steps started moving away, and then silence. Just the sound of the wind outside. I stayed there in bed holding the machete, not knowing what to think. The night dragged on and I barely got any sleep. All I could ask myself was, what the hell was lurking around my place? As the sun started to come up, I decided it was time to investigate. I grabbed the machete and went outside to see what had happened during the night. I wasn't ready for what I was about to find. As soon as the sun rose, I went out to check. Holding the machete tightly, I started walking around the place, inspecting the traps I had set the day before. I tried to stay calm, but honestly, the fear of finding something I didn't want to see was eating away at me. I walked slowly, looking at everything around me. The tracks on the ground were strange, but I still couldn't figure out what kind of creature they were from. They looked like large footprints, but they weren't exactly from an animal. I couldn't quite make them out. As I got closer to the largest trap, one of those heavy iron ones I used for catching bears, I realized something had happened. The trap was triggered. From a distance, I could see something caught in it, but it wasn't a bear, or a wolf, or any other animal I had seen before. As I got closer, I started feeling a chill, the kind that makes your whole body shake. When I got even closer, I saw that it was a man. I froze on the spot. The guy was lying on the ground with his leg caught in the bear trap. He wasn't moving, and I knew right away that he was dead. But what scared me the most wasn't just that. The man didn't look like a normal person. He had long, scruffy hair like it hadn't been cut in years. His beard was just as wild, dirty, and full of leaves and twigs. His clothes were in tatters, like he had been living in the woods for years without seeing another human. I stood there, staring at him, trying to process what was happening. My head was spinning. I hadn't meant to kill anyone. I just wanted to protect myself and the place from some animal that was lurking, but there he was. A dead man, caught in a trap I had set. What terrified me even more was the way he looked. He seemed like a caveman, something you'd only see in movies or history books. Who was this man? What was he doing here, wandering around my place in the middle of the night? He looked like he'd been living in the wilderness for a long time, but why? None of it made any sense. The guilt hit me hard, but along with it, so did the fear. I didn't know if anyone else was out there, or if he was part of a group. What if more of them showed up that night? I was alone, out of ammo, with just a machete, and the sense that something terribly wrong had just happened. That's when I decided I couldn't stay there anymore. It didn't matter how much I liked that place or how used to the isolation I was. Something strange was happening, and I didn't want to stick around to find out what it was. I grabbed what I could carry and left. I didn't look back. I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible and never come back. The man, well, I couldn't bring myself to remove him from the trap. Honestly, I didn't have the guts. I hope someone else found him in time and gave him a proper burial.